Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I think that's how you say his name. It's based 30 years after the original movie, which was directed by Ridley Scott. He returns here, but in producing form. He's the producer of this movie. And I just love that original movie, Blade Runner. Recently seen it in the cinema as a special showing. I can't remember what for, but I seen it in the cinema. I think it was last year. But that was incredible just to see that on the big screen. But yeah, absolutely adore that movie. And I was really, really looking forward to the sequel. And I was even more excited when Denis Villeneuve was announced as the director. I just couldn't think of anyone better, really, to direct a movie like this. So we got Ryan Gosling, who plays a Blade Runner for the Los Angeles Police Department. He ends up unearthing a long-buried secret by accident while on a case. And this secret has the potential of basically causing chaos within the society, or what's left of society. And so by stumbling upon this secret, he ends up going on to this investigation, and he ends up facing more questions than answers. And that's all I'm going to say really about the plot. So I'm going to start off with saying this is a beautiful short movie. This movie looks stunning. They managed to replicate the look and feel of the original Blade Runner so well. And it just felt so real and dirty and dark and gritty and used. It felt real to the point where you think you could smell it. With the use of fog and smoke and lighting, it just looked amazing, and as a result was very, very immersive. It really sort of absorbed you into this world by the way it was just purely because of the way it was just crafted and put up onto the screen. And you got these big wide aerial shots of the landscape and the cityscape, and it looked so real. And it just looked beautiful. I just loved the look of this movie. The cinematography was stunning. And it was also helped by the very, very impressive CGI. The CGI was very, very, very good in this movie. And used when it needed to be used as well. It was implemented when it needed it to be. Also, the sound design in this film. I have to mention the sound design. But it was also amazing. Like, you'd hear these little things within a scene, and it would really help immerse you into these scenes and these moments, and it made the movie really intense as well. I just loved everything about it. When it comes to the crafting of this movie, technically it is amazing. It is perfect, in fact. The blend of CGI, practical, the cinematography, the lighting, the sound, it just all sort of really blended very well together. And it looked stunning. It felt like a real world that was being lived in, that had been lived in. And that's exactly what cinema should do. It should immerse you into these worlds so that you forget the outside world. And what I will recommend is for you, if you haven't seen it yet, go and see it in IMAX. If you have seen it, go and see it again in IMAX. I'm going to see it again, and I'm going to plan on seeing it in IMAX, hopefully. Because this really does need to be seen on the biggest screen you can see it on. Just remember, sitting there, especially during the first few moments of the movie, and it plays out quite similar to the first Blade Runner film, where it sort of gradually immerses you into this world, and you've got these big wide shots of the cityscape, and you get the feel of this and the vibe of this world, and it reminded me a lot of the original. And I had this big geeky smile on my face because it reminded me of when I was a child and I used to watch this movie, and I remember as a child being in awe of the first movie and how everything looked so real, and how dark and dirty and gritty everything felt, and they really did a good job of replicating that with this sequel. And again, like I was when I was a child watching the original movie, I was watching this at the age of 28, and I was in awe again. They transported me in this world, and that is what cinema is all about, and it was perfect. And that was all helped by the soundtrack as well. The soundtrack was amazing. It was stunning. The music in this movie was composed by Hans Zimmer and a Benjamin Wolfish, or something like that. I can't quite say his surname, but it was Hans Zimmer and a Benjamin Wolfish. But it was very, very beautiful, like the first movie. Very nostalgic. There are sounds that, if you're a fan of the original movie, the soundtrack in Blade Runner 2049 will make you smile, because there are a lot of sounds that will be very familiar to you when it comes to the soundtrack, as well as the sound design as well. Actually, coming back to the sound design for a moment, there were certain effects they used in this movie that were used in the original, and I believe there was one effect that was used in the same effect that was used in Alien, actually, but it was in this movie, and that also made me smile. But yeah, going back to the soundtrack, it was loud, it was gloomy, it was powerful, and again, very immersive, and it was amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on the CD, and I probably will get the vinyl as well. But yeah, fans of the original will be happy to hear the familiar sounds of the original soundtrack. I was. The narrative in this film is very, very smartly done. Like, during the first act, I was sort of thinking it was becoming a little bit predictable, and I was thinking, oh, I know where they're going with this. And then all of a sudden it would go into a different direction. And I really like that. They did a very good job at misleading you in thinking this movie was going in one direction, and then all of a sudden it would go into a completely different direction. And I liked how they achieved that. It was very clever, very smartly done, in which the way this narrative sort of played out. It was like a puzzle. And I really, really liked it. And it really made you think. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a really deep story, a very meaningful story, like the original, and it was very, very well done. They crafted it in the same way as they did with the original, but not sort of duplicate it or rip it off. It was done very, very smartly in its own way, if you know what I'm saying. So it's like it didn't take what the original done and sort of chew it up and do its own version. It sort of expanded on those ideas of the original. Ryan Gosling was very, very good in this film, gave a very sort of believable performance. I really, really liked what he did with the character, this Blade Runner that he was playing. His performance in this film reminded me a little bit of the performance he gave in Only God Forgives. Brilliant film, love that film. His performance was very similar, but it needed to be. But yeah, a very subdued performance, and I really, really liked it. And who surprised me in this film was Harrison Ford. He was very, very good. I was actually worried when it came to Harrison Ford. Don't know why, but I just thought I was expecting just an average performance. He's coming back to this character after so many years, and I don't know, but there were moments in this film where Harrison Ford was delivering some lines in certain moments, and he was really, really good. I think probably his performance in this movie is one of Harrison Ford's best. And there was one moment in this movie by a bar. It's a bar scene, and it almost made me tear up, and that was a lot of it was down to Harrison Ford's performance. He gave a really sort of deep, meaningful performance, and he's only in it for the third act. I think that's no big spoiler. Ridley Scott actually announced that himself, but he makes the most of it in that third act as well. Jared Leto as Wallace, he's basically the new Tyrell in a way. He was also really, really good in this film. I really dug his performance, actually. I like the look at him. He comes across as this sort of this character who sort of thinks of himself as being a god, which sort of makes sense in a way, because he is really creating life. And I just loved the way he handled the character. He actually makes you feel uneasy. I also really liked the action in this film. It's not filled with action, and I think that might put some people off. But it's just not all about the action. It's about the characters and the questions and the themes that this movie explores. That's what this movie is all about, and that is what I really liked about it. I think he did it really well. It's a very deep, rich and smart movie in all sort of aspects, in the way, from the way in which it was made, to the storytelling, to the way, technically it was crafted. It was pretty much perfect. Everything about this movie I loved. I cannot wait to see it again. It's not a short film, so again, I think that will also put a lot of people off. It hasn't really done as well at the box office as they predicted it would. But I do highly recommend everyone goes and sees it. It's quite an important movie in a way, you know, when in regards to the themes that it explores, and it will make you think, and this movie will stay with you afterwards, because it did with me, and I was constantly thinking over my head about certain parts of the film. And there was also this really intense fight scene during the first act, and it was very brutal and very intense, and a lot of it was down to the dialogue within this scene as well, to the build up to this fight. And it was a very, very well crafted scene. I just loved how the scene played out, and along with the sound design, it was just really, really, really good. And after that first scene, you're constantly at the edge of your seat, you know, wondering where this character is going to go next, and you know what he's going to find out next. And it does. This movie overall was a very sort of intense experience, and I found myself constantly sort of on the edge of my seat, because you don't know what's going to happen next. You know, mainly down to the way the narrative sort of plays out, going back to how the narrative sort of misleads you. And so yeah, this was a very intense experience, and I loved that. Overall, this film was pretty much perfect in all sort of aspects, and that is why I will be giving Blade Runner 2049 an A+. Thank you guys again for watching. I really do appreciate it. What did you think of Blade Runner 2049? Let me know below. Was there anything you disagreed with what I said about the film? Let me know below. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you like what you see and you share the same passion as me, then why not hit subscribe?